They never stabbed you in the back. No, they smiled when they did it. That's what makes it worse. The betrayal didn't happen in some dramatic explosion. It came in silence, in the pauses between words, in the sudden shift of tone when your name was mentioned. You thought loyalty meant something. You thought truth had weight. But to them, it was all theater, and you were the easiest character to replace. They waited until you were vulnerable, until your guard was down, your hands open, your heart unarmored. Then they struck. Not with knives, but with whispers. Lies that spread like wildfire, twisting everything you ever did into something ugly. You remember the moment it all collapsed. The air felt heavier, the faces colder. You saw people you'd once blaud for step back, pretending they didn't know you. That's when it hit. Betrayal doesn't scream, it sighs. It walks away while you're still talking. The world you built started to rot from the inside. Your victories meant nothing. Your reputation became a rumor, your presence an inconvenience. You replayed the moments, the laughter, the plans, wondering how long they'd been pretending. Every shared memory became evidence, every smile a warning you missed. And when you finally stood there, stripped of your illusion, you realized something brutal. They didn't hate you, they feared you. They saw something in you they couldn't understand, something they had to destroy before it became undeniable. They didn't betray you because you were weak. They betrayed you because you carried something they couldn't control, a light that revealed their shadows, a hunger that reminded them how small they truly were. So they did what frightened people always do. They broke what they couldn't become. But what they didn't know is that betrayal isn't death, it's transformation. The version of you that trusted too easily is gone. What remains is colder, quieter, but infinitely sharper. You stand now in the ruins they left behind, and for the first time you see the pattern. Every word, every deception, all of it was training. Every scar a lesson. The betrayal wasn't punishment, it was initiation. You were never meant to stay among them. You were meant to outgrow them. They thought they were burying you under shame and silence, but the truth is they planted something far more dangerous. There's a moment that comes after the collapse. A stillness where you stop bleeding and start calculating, where pain becomes precision. You start to see through the illusion of loyalty, the theater of friendship, the myth of fairness. You realize that power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from surviving when no one thought you could. They took your comfort, your name, your peace, and in doing so they forged something they'll never have: endurance. They'll keep watching you, pretending not to. They'll whisper your name like a ghost story, wondering how you're still breathing. But that's what terrifies them. You're not supposed to exist anymore. And yet, here you are, still standing, still silent, still carrying something that shouldn't exist. The kind of resilience that turns betrayal into prophecy. The silence comes first, not the peaceful kind that soothes you, but the kind that swallows sound itself, the kind that makes you realize how truly alone you are. They used to say your name like it meant something. Now it's just air, forgotten in the mouths that once praised you. Messages stop. Calls die before the first ring. You scroll through old conversations that once burned bright, now ashes in your hand. Every laugh, every promise, erased. You start to wonder if you ever mattered at all, or if you were just a placeholder until something shinier came along. That's how the world works. It drains you, then pretends it never touched you. The nights stretch longer now. You stop keeping track of time because the clock no longer keeps you company. It mocks you instead. You sit in the dark, and the dark sits back, studying you. Every shadow looks like a memory trying to crawl its way back into your head. The mirror across the room doesn't reflect you anymore. It reflects what's left. The version of you that's stripped of validation, stripped of audience, stripped of meaning. You used to crave recognition. Now you'd settle for being seen. But no one looks. No one ever does. That's the curse of the fallen. They vanish while the world keeps spinning. You begin to feel like a ghost haunting your own life. The streets you once owned don't recognize your footsteps. The people who once claimed they'd always be there have become strangers in familiar skins. You start to taste the bitterness of reality, that loyalty is conditional, and compassion expires the moment you stop being useful. You scream into your pillow, but even your voice sounds foreign, weak, almost pleading. That's when it hits you. No one's coming. Not because they can't, but because they won't. And the sooner you accept that, the sharper you become. So you sit in the wreckage of your old world and let the silence teach you. It tells you things the noise never could. It whispers that love is currency, loyalty is leverage, and pain is the only teacher that doesn't lie. You start seeing the truth in patterns, in how they celebrated your light but flinched from your fire, in how they cheered your ambition until it threatened their comfort. You start to realize that your suffering isn't punishment, it's purification. Every tear is a blade sharpening the version of you they'll regret underestimating. The air feels heavier, thicker, charged. You're no longer the same creature that walked into this darkness. Something ancient begins to wake inside you. A quiet force, patient, unbending. You can't name it yet, but it feels older than fear and colder than revenge. You stop begging the universe for mercy and start listening to the hum beneath your ribs, the sound of endurance. The world forgot you, yes, but it also freed you, because the one who walks through fire alone never walks the same again. You stare at yourself, but the reflection doesn't move. It studies you, like it's waiting for you to admit what you've become. The eyes staring back are familiar yet wrong. There's no softness left in them, only calculation. The mirror used to be a place of judgment, where you searched for reasons, excuses, something to blame. Now it's a battlefield, you versus the ghost of who you were before they broke you. The room is quiet, but it feels like the walls are holding their breath, afraid to interrupt what's being born here. You lean closer and the truth hits you like a cold blade. No one is coming. No apology is waiting. No justice is owed. The realization burns through your chest, hollowing everything that once begged for fairness. You remember their words, the laughter behind your back, the promises they shattered while smiling. It replays in your head like a sermon of betrayal, and you finally understand that pain wasn't punishment. It was instruction. Every wound carved out space for strength. Every silence taught you how to listen without trust. You see your reflection blink, slow, deliberate. The weakness that once trembled in your jawline is gone. You've become still, not from peace, but from precision. This isn't healing, it's weaponization. You stopped asking why they hurt you. You started asking why it worked. And now it doesn't. The mirror is cracked, yet somehow clearer. It doesn't lie anymore. It shows exactly what you forged in the dark: restraint, calculation, hunger. The kind of hunger that doesn't starve. It studies, it waits, it devours in silence. There's a pulse beneath your skin, a rhythm that wasn't there before. You used to hide it, afraid it made you different. Now it's your edge. You carry something they don't: endurance. The kind that doesn't need recognition. The kind that terrifies people who mistake calmness for weakness. They'll see your silence and call it coldness. They'll sense your distance and mistake it for emptiness. But the truth, you're not empty. You're full of everything they ran from. Fire disguised as stillness. You wipe the glass and your reflection smirks, just barely. That tiny motion tells you everything. You're not rebuilding who you were. You're constructing something new, something ancient. A version of yourself built like the old gods, silent, patient, vengeful only through results. You don't need to scream your worth anymore. Your presence will do that for you. They tried to drown you, but you learned to breathe underwater. They buried you in silence, and you learned to make silence your kingdom. Now the mirror no longer reflects who you are. It kneels to what you've become. The world won't recognize you at first. It's easier for them to believe you disappeared. But one day they'll feel it. In every quiet victory, every unspoken boundary, every time your eyes meet theirs and they realize the person they betrayed didn't die. They evolved into something unbreakable. And that's what truly haunts them. The nights stopped being nights. They became hours measured in blood and breath. You stopped asking why. You started asking how far. Every bruise, every unanswered message, every silent betrayal became your fuel. You didn't beg for healing. You tore it out of the fire with your bare hands, while the rest slept in comfort. You were awake in the dark, reshaping yourself piece by brutal piece. The world forgot you existed, and that's when you became dangerous, because those who rise unseen, rise unopposed. The grind wasn't glamorous, it was holy. Your temple was the pain no one saw. Your prayers were repetitions carved into muscle and mind. You didn't chase approval. You built your own altar from the wreckage they left behind. They mocked your silence, never realizing silence sharpens faster than words. You learned to treat loneliness like oxygen, to feed on isolation until it became strength. Every second alone was a transaction, suffering traded for self-mastery. You began to see it, the old version of you gasping for air, begging for validation, fading like smoke, and you watched it die without mercy. There were no miracles, only the mirror, cold, merciless, truthful. It told you what no one else would. You were never weak. You were just surrounded by cowards. The grind stripped away illusions until only instinct remained. You moved differently, spoke less, thought sharper. Your heartbeat sensed with the rhythm of resistance. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped needing to be understood. That was the moment you crossed over, the invisible line between those who seek comfort and those who create chaos. You carried on through nights that broke better men. You worked until your hands trembled, until the ache became language, until exhaustion turned into focus. The pain no longer threatened to destroy you. It became your compass. Each scar taught you something the peaceful will never understand, that greatness is not born in light, but in the places where no one looks twice. You began to trust your demons more than your friends, because the demons never lied, they only tested your truth. There's an ancient code written into the ones who survive this kind of exile. You feel it now, the pull towards something ruthless, disciplined, unstoppable. You learn to weaponize routine, to turn monotony into a ritual of resurrection. The body obeys the mind, and the mind obeys the will. You became the architect of your own resurrection, designing a version of yourself so unrecognizable that even your past would bow before it. And yet, there's no applause. No one sees the hours. No one claps for the nights you almost gave up. That's the point. True transformation doesn't announce itself. It creeps through the cracks of your old life until everything you touch feels sharper, colder, more deliberate. The grind was never about revenge. It was about ascension. You were never rebuilding what was lost. You were forging what was forbidden. And in that silence, in that relentless repetition, something ancient began to awaken inside you. Something that doesn't seek light, because it is the fire. The fire doesn't start with a spark. It starts with everything that was taken from you. Trust, warmth, innocence. You remember the faces that smiled when you fell, the hands that pushed you deeper while pretending to help. They didn't just break you, they tested what you were made of. And when the ashes settled, you saw something they couldn't, the outline of what refused to die. You stand in the ruins, not as a victim, but as proof that destruction can be divine. The silence you once feared has become your forge. Every scar, every sleepless night, every unanswered question melted into a kind of focus that frightens even you. You no longer seek understanding. You don't crave their validation or their pity. You've seen too much for that. You've stared into the cold machinery of the world and realized it rewards the quiet killers, the patient builders, the ones who bleed in silence but walk out smiling. You learned that pain is currency, and you've paid your dues. The betrayal that used to suffocate you now fuels your lungs. The memories that once made you shiver now sharpen your edges. You stopped asking why. You started asking, what next? They thought you'd break. They waited for you to vanish. But you adapted. You became something unrecognizable, something they can't categorize or control. You operate in silence now, detached, disciplined, precise. You understand what few ever do, that power isn't about noise. It's about control. Control of self, control of emotion, control of time. You've become your own architect, sculpting a version of yourself that no longer bleeds for those who never cared. The same heart they stepped on now beats like a war drum, steady, relentless, terrifying in its calm. When you walk now, the air changes, not because you demand attention, but because everything about you radiates quiet consequence. The old you would have explained yourself, begged to be understood. The new you lets your silence speak. You've learned the art of restraint, the kind that drives the world insane because it can't predict you. They'll try to bait you, to drag you back into noise and chaos, but you've already learned their language and rewritten it in fire. They don't realize you stopped fighting them. You started studying them, and that makes you dangerous. There's something ancient in you now. Something that remembers the old ways of survival, where wolves walked alone and never apologized for their hunger. That's what you've become, not cruel, not cold, but necessary. You move with purpose, you burn with reason, and you carry your silence like a blade. They'll call it arrogant, they'll call it obsession, but they'll never call it weakness again. Because what you carry inside you now, that relentless, unkillable fire, wasn't given, it was forged. And once forged, it can never be destroyed. You don't announce your return. You arrive like a shadow slipping through the cracks of a world that once spat you out. No warning, no sound, just the quiet shift in the air when something powerful enters the room. They don't notice at first. How could they? The same people who mocked your silence never learned how to listen. They look past you, blind to the recalibrated monster standing inches from their own reflection. They used to see weakness in your stillness. Now, it's the only thing that unnerves them, because there's a new kind of danger in your calm, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything anymore. The old you would have screamed for validation, clawed for closure, begged to be understood. But that version burned in the fire they started. What's left walks in silence, precise, deliberate, efficient. You've become what they fear most, someone who no longer reacts. You don't chase, you don't explain. You let your existence whisper what words could never survive saying. Every step you take is evidence, every glance a sermon. You've learned that true revenge isn't destruction, it's evolution. And evolution never apologizes for outgrowing what tried to bury it. You return to the same streets, same offices, same names carved into doors, and yet everything feels smaller. You realize it wasn't the world that shrank, it's you who expanded. The walls that used to corner you now crumble beneath the weight of your composure. Power doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It arrives as absence, the absence of fear, the absence of need. You look them in the eyes and see panic masked as politeness. They can feel it, that you've seen too much, lost too much, become too much to ever bow again. You operate like a ghost with unfinished business, not seeking vengeance, but balance. Every move is strategy, every silence a blade. You've learned to weaponize restraint, to master the art of doing nothing until the moment doing nothing becomes lethal. You've studied their language, their patterns, their greed, and now you speak through outcomes, not arguments. They spread their noise to fill the room. You erase it with a single, measured glance. You don't need to tell them you've won. The results already did. They remember your fall as entertainment, your struggle as gossip, your name as a footnote. But they'll remember your return as prophecy, because when you rise without permission, it forces them to confront the nightmare that their cruelty created. You're no longer the victim of the story. You're the reckoning it was leading to. The world once called you broken, now it prays you stay silent, and you will, not out of mercy but mastery, because you've learned that true dominance doesn't scream, it simply exists, quietly, unshaken, watching. You've become the storm they can't predict, the stillness before it hits, the consequence that no one saw coming, and when they finally realize what you've become, it will already be too late. The noise has finally stopped. The world that once screamed your name in mockery now whispers it in reverence, quiet, restrained, afraid to speak too loudly in your presence. You don't crave their acknowledgement anymore. You've outgrown the need to be seen. Power, you've learned, isn't in the shout. It's in the silence that follows. The silence you earned after walking through storms that should have broken you. The silence that bends even chaos into obedience. You sit where you once crawled, breathing evenly, unshaken, knowing no applause could ever match the sound of your own survival. They called you lost, broken, delusional for believing you could rise again. But they never understood what you carried. You were not chasing victory. You were becoming inevitability. The crown you wear isn't gold or jeweled. It's made of scars, burned hands, sleepless nights, and the quiet rage that refused to die. You don't need to remind anyone who you are. Your existence alone unsettles the weak. You became the very thing they feared, a being untouchable, unshaken, unreadable. They stare now, trying to recognize the version of you they once betrayed. But you've buried that person beneath layers of fire and discipline. What they see now is something forged, not found. There's a stillness to you that confuses. They mistake it for peace, not realizing its power restrained. You've learned that real dominance requires no motion, no announcement. The lion doesn't explain the silence before the strike, it just ends things. You've become that silence, cold, calculated, absolute. The same silence that haunted you in your downfall has become your most loyal weapon. You sit in it like a throne, knowing you don't need to raise your voice to command a room. Your presence alone rearranges the air. You used to beg for understanding. Now you move without seeking it. You used to bleed for belonging. Now they bleed to be near your orbit. Power reversed. Tables turned. The game ended long ago, and you were the only one who kept playing after everyone else quit. That's what terrifies them. You didn't win by luck or chance. You won by endurance. You outlasted their cruelty, their noise, their doubt. You turned pain into prophecy. And now they follow the very echoes they once ignored. The truth is, they were right about one thing. You're not normal. You're carrying something that shouldn't exist, an ancient fire that refuses to die, a kind of stillness this world cannot corrupt. You walk through rooms like a storm that learned patience. You look at the faces that betrayed you and feel nothing, not because you've forgotten, but because you no longer need to remember. They tried to bury you, but the soil became your armor. They tried to silence you, but silence became your language. And now you rule quietly, wearing a crown no one can see but everyone can feel.